All right, the UFC returns to the Apex this weekend. UFC Vegas 94, 6-fight main card. We're going to cover them all. A lot of South Koreans on this card, Alex.
Is that an observation? I'm hoping that's just an observation.
It's an observation.
Good.
I'm just wondering.
Is it a surprise South Korea card?
It sounds like it.
It feels like
the fight should be in Seoul, but it's not. But let's start off.
I should be in Seoul.
The opening fight, speaking of South Koreans, we got the Korean Superboy, Dooho Choi, taking on Bill Algeo, Senor Perfecto. Interesting fact about Choi, he's fought one time since 2019. That was a draw.
Yep.
Out of his last 4 fights, he has 3 losses, 1 draw. So not the best trajectory for Choi. He's trying to restart his career, so say. Bill Algeo comes in 5-4 in the UFC, 18-8 overall. He did lose his last fight, a first-round KO to Nelson.
They both fought Kyle Nelson recently.
Both fought Kyle. Well, both of their Choi drew him.
Yep.
Algeo lost to him, first-round knockouts.
First time he was.
And
KO'd.
we say recently for Choi. That was his most recent fight is February of 23, and before that was 2019.
Right.
So kind of hard to see where he's going with his career. He is a power guy, though. He has 3 UFC wins, all 3 by KO. So it's an interesting fight. What Choi shows up? Is he going to be a new fighter? Is he a guy that has put the past behind him? His last few fights haven't gone his way? Or is Algeo the guy who's been much more active? Does he have the advantage in this?
So Choi's never won as an underdog in the UFC. That's one little weird fun fact.
That is a fun fact.
And he's currently the underdog. Take that as you will. Like you said, his records, 1-3-1 in his last 5. Billy Algeo is 3-2 in his last 5. It was his first time being knocked out, his last fight. So we got to see how he responds to that.
How he responds. And it wasn't that long ago. It was March.
Right.
First round knockout.
Choi is 1-1-1 against longer reach, where Bill Algeo has a 3-inch reach
with Choi,
advantage.
I almost think he's fought so little recently that you can't even look at these stats because it's I don't even know if these trends are going to hold up for him.
Yeah, that's the only thing we have to go on.
Yeah.
That's the problem. I think because of so little data and so little ability to watch what he's done recently, because that's been, some of it was injuries, some of it was he had to.
I mean, his 3 straight losses were all 3 knockout.
No, I'm saying some of the time
knockout.
between fighting.
Or 2 knockouts.
Some of it was injury, but also some of it was he had to serve in the military, South Korea.
Oh yeah,
so he had to do his mandatory
same thing with
service.
Korean Zombie did.
Yeah, everybody at some point for South Korea.
Yes.
So it's not to say he's not tough or anything like that.
Oh, I'm not saying he's not tough.
But he hasn't put up and he hasn't shown a bunch of impressive things in the UFC, which makes me want to lean towards Bill Algeo.
Yeah, I'm going with the guy that's a little more active.
He's bigger. He's 6 foot, 73-inch reach. He strikes more from what I can prove.
I think Algeo's going to rebound off of the bad loss he had last fight. He seems to have the distinct advantage on the ground. 7 submission wins as opposed to Choi's 1 submission win. But Choi's never been submitted, so that's interesting. But I'm going to go with Algeo to win the fight.
Sweet. So first fight we agree on. Let's move on to the flyweights next. The easiest names to pronounce on the fight card: Cody Durden versus Bruno Silva.
The Bulldog.
So Cody Durden in his career is 16-5-1, and Bruno Silva is 13-5-2. So pretty similar there.
Durden 5-3-1 in the UFC. Silva 3-2-1 no contest in the UFC.
Yep. Now, if you look at the ways they've won, Cody Durden has 6 KOs, 5 subs, 5 decisions. Bruno Silva has 5 KOs, 4 subs, 4
But Durden
decisions.
only has 1 finish in the UFC, and it's 1 KO.
Yeah, very similar records. So they're kind of very similar fighters going in. So
Silva, all 3 of his UFC wins are by finish. 2 KOs, 1 submission.
I have...
And he's won 3 in a row, Silva, that is. All 3 by finish after starting 0-2-1.
Another fight where they both lost or fought the same guy, Tagir Ulanbekov.
Yes.
He subbed Cody Durden and subbed Bruno Silva, which I think you just said 3 fights in a row were sub losses for Bruno Silva.
No, 3 fights in a row he's won by...
he's won by sub.
No, by finish.
By finish.
2 KO, 1 sub. Including a sub in his last win.
But he's fighting for his 2nd time since 2021. That's a big problem for me.
Yeah, I get it. But I think he's just... I think he has more momentum. I think he's on the winning path right now. Durden, I think he's kind of up and down.
I disagree.
Obviously, Silva's a little up and down, but Silva, as I said, 3 in a row. I got the Brazilian. I got Bulldog. I got Bruno, Bulldog, Silva. And I think he gets another finish.
Bruno Silva fighting southpaws in the UFC. He's 0-1. I'm going to lean on that with the slight favorite odds of Cody Durden. Cody Durden to win over Bruno Silva.
I like when we disagree.
I do too, because I usually win.
Well, fuck you, Alex.
Yeah, whatever. All right, let's move on to the friend of the podcast, Kurt Holobaugh, lightweight division, tough 31 lightweight winner. Shout out Kurt Holobaugh.
Shout out Kurt Holobaugh.
Taking on his next victim, Kaynan Kruschewsky. Kruschewsky? I'm
Sure.
giving it my best. So we got Kurt Holobaugh. He's 21-8. He's 1-1 this time.
His
in the
third
UFC.
time in the UFC is 1-1. He's coming off of a loss. It was a tough unanimous decision loss, but this is his third time in the
Trey
UFC.
Ogden, that man just forcing shoulders pinned to the canvas for 3 straight rounds. It's hard to win that fight.
This is Holobaugh's third time in the UFC, as we said, but it's obvious he's gotten better since his last 2 times. He's a different fighter, as you said, one tough. So he got his first win 2 fights ago in the UFC. Which was the one, I think it was on the Sean O'Malley, when Sean O'Malley won the belt.
Yep.
Coming off of a loss, I think Holobaugh, how is he going to respond? He's a veteran, and he's taking on a guy who's 0-1 in the UFC. His only loss was by KO.
Yeah, he lost his debut by KO to
round
Elvis
1.
Brenner.
Yeah, round 1 KO. Before that, though, he had gone 8 fights without a loss, 7 wins, 1 no contest. So he's a guy, he's used to winning. It's just, can he win at this level, at the UFC level? And we're yet to see that.
Yep. I think the approach is going to be a little similar for both. I think they're going to
both guys very heavy on the ground.
I was about to say they're both going to be comfortable on the ground. They're both going to be looking to take the fight there. I think after Holobaugh's, not performance, but the fact that he couldn't do anything really he couldn't mount any performance against Ogden, I think he's going to try to come out here and show out.
I do too. I think as you said, they're pretty even on the ground. I think Holobaugh has the advantage on the feet.
I would agree with that. Holobaugh's a slight underdog here, but I have Holobaugh winning the fight. I think it's going to be, not the easiest fight for either guy. I think it's going to be a test, being that they're very similar. But I think Holobaugh is going to come out with the victory here.
I got Kurt too. I got the hurt. I got Holobaugh winning the fight.
Sweet. All right, let's go to Steve, the Mean Machine Garcia, taking on SeungWoo Choi. His nickname is Sting.
SeungWoo Choi. Sting.
Like the lead singer of The Police.
Yes.
Every breath you take.
Both guys 6 foot. Garcia, 15 wins, 5 losses, 4-2 in the UFC. All 4 wins by KO. SeungWoo Choi, 11-6, 4-5 in the UFC. 1 KO win. So it's a little. 2 guys that have had vastly different UFC careers, as I would say. Both the same amount of wins, but Choi has had significantly more losses. He is coming off of a win, though. Choi, that is. But before that, he had 3 straight losses. So where is he at mentally? We don't know.
I can tell you one thing where both of these guys are at. Steve Garcia and SeungWoo Choi, between the 2 of them, have 0 submission victories.
Yeah, nobody. This
is going to be a stand-up and fight-me fight. We're going to be throwing down in the middle of the octagon. We're going to be looking for timing. We're going to be looking to knock somebody out for this entire 3 rounds.
As I said before, all of Garcia's wins in the UFC, 4 of them, all by KO, TKO.
Yep.
So that's what he's going to be trying to do.
Choi is 1-2 against southpaws. Steve Garcia is a southpaw, to point that out.
Southpaw with power. That's dangerous if you struggle against southpaws.
Yeah, if you can't see it, you're not ever going to see it because you're going to be sleeping. He's also 33%, so he's winning 1 out of every 3 as the underdog, which these odds for the whole card are very, very close.
Yeah, a lot of close fights.
But I want to see that because at that point it takes, the fighter actually coming out there and win it, not being discouraged that they're the plus 700 underdog. They know all this stuff. They see the talks on the internet. SeungWoo Choi has the chance here, but I think Steve Garcia is going to win. Probably by knockout.
I agree. I think Garcia gets the knockout. 5 straight wins.
Also, I have to root for
4
Garcia.
straight wins, 5.
America.
Yes.
Boom. After this past weekend, come on. All right, let's go on to the next one. We both agree Steve Garcia is going to knock out SeungWoo Choi.
But speaking of that,
Speaking
You're
of,
going for the American
oh yeah,
against South Korea, and your whole logic goes out in this next fight for me. Brad Tavares, who I've hated ever since he just started leg kicking the shit out of Chris Weidman's first fight back.
yeah, it really makes you hate a man.
Taking on the Iron Turtle, JunYong Park. JunYong Park, 7-3 in the UFC. He is coming off of a tough split decision loss, but before that, had 4 straight wins. He's won 6 out of his last 8 fights. So he's a guy that's had success, a lot of success in the UFC.
And in those 4 straight wins he had, 3 of those were subs.
And he's taking on a guy in Brad Tavares who is 15-9 in the UFC. Only 2 finishes. Those are 2 KO finishes. But he's not a guy. He's a guy that if he's going to win a fight,
he's not an idiot for sure.
He's going to go to the scorecard. He's going to We saw against Chris Weidman where he wasn't trying to be popular. He was trying to win the fight. That was the best way to win the fight. But I hate him for it. I thought he was going to cripple Chris Weidman for life.
I thought we were going to have to rewatch that leg break.
Yeah, I thought so too.
God.
But Iron Turtle, as you said, he's killer on the ground. He's very dangerous on the ground. He also has some power in his hands, too. He hasn't shown that in the UFC yet, but 5 career KO wins.
Yep.
That's something to watch out for.
Now, going back to Tavares, while we hate him,
he's 1-3 in his last 4, Tavares, though, and his only win was against Weidman coming off of a leg break.
Right, but he faced Duplessis, Rodriguez, RoboCop. Those were 2 of the last 3 losses.
Yes.
Bruno Silva, which we're about to see what Bruno Silva's made out of coming back here.
So he's fought some good guys, but
then he also fought Izzy, Edmund Shabazian. Like, he's fought dogs. Robert Whitaker, Yoel Romero. In 2014, Yoel Romero, when he was probably 40.
he fights everybody.
He goes to decision. That's how he was going to win.
He's a decision guy.
I think JunYong Park, the Iron Turtle, is going to...
One interesting thing, though, Tavares has never lost by submission.
That's fine.
That's JunYong Park's thing, but I think JunYong Park, I'm going to give him, I agree with you.
I'm
Sorry to
giving
cut you off.
JunYong Park the benefit. He's going to come out strong this time after that loss, and he's going to win. I think he's going to beat Brad Tavares, and I hope he does.
I got JunYong Park too, but I think it's going to be by decision.
I could see that happening. It's obviously hard to put Brad Tavares out.
KO. He's lost 5 times by KO.
But he's never been subbed.
Yes.
So he's defending takedowns well. Regardless, it's not like he's not fighting a wrestling guy throughout his whole career.
Let's move on to main event. Kind of surprising. 2nd week in a row, a women headline the UFC card. That might be a first.
Is that just an observation?
Yeah.
Or do you have an issue with it?
No, I don't have an issue. I'm just saying it's surprising. The UFC doesn't typically do that. Amanda
Why?
Lemos, I don't know. Ask Dana White. He said about 10 years ago he'd never let women fight in the UFC, and here we are.
Well,
we got Amanda Lemos, Amanda Nina, the Brazilian, taking on her countrywoman, Virna. I'm going to give you Virna's last name.
Virna Jandiroba.
Jandiroba is 20 wins, 3 losses, 6-3 in the UFC. She's taking on Amanda Lemos, as we said, 14 wins, 3 losses, 1 draw, 8-3 in the UFC. One interesting thing, Lemos, 5 of her 8 wins are by finish in the UFC. So that's 3 KOs, 2 subs. So she's a lady that likes to get the finish.
And 11 of her 14 wins in her career by finish.
Yeah, so she...
Even outside of the UFC,
she doesn't go to the scorecard a whole lot. And then Virna, on the other hand, loves submissions. 13 out of her 20 career wins are by submission, and she has never been finished. So it's an interesting matchup right here. Virna has won 3 straight and 5 out of 6, but she is coming off of but she won her last performance in March, a nice performance against Godinez.
Lupi Godinez.
Lupi.
Yeah.
So this is an interesting fight. I think both women come in with a lot of momentum. Lemos has won 3 out of 4. Both, I think, are hitting. They're older, 36 and 37 respectively, but both are kind of like hitting that peak where they're at the top of this division, and they legitimately, the winner of this is probably a win or 2 away from getting a title shot.
Yeah, I was about to say that. You have Amanda Lemos, the number 3 women's strawweight. Virna Jandiroba is the women's number 5.
And both are always down to fight. They always put on like tough performances.
And I wouldn't fight either one of them because they'd beat the shit out of me. I mean, it's that easy for them. So Lemos lost to Andrade by sub. So
yeah, Lemos, her losses, you go look at the women she's lost to, they're dogs.
Yeah, it's 14-3-1 in her career. that's an impressive record. And then you go to Virna Jandiroba, who, I'd argue that she's a less known fighter in the UFC because, there's just less hype around her for whatever reason. She's 20-3. That's hard to do. She's subbing people out. She's securing takedowns. She's securing submissions. I think here, because Jandiroba stays out of danger so well, like, look at her stats. She's only lost 3 times by decision. She's never been finished. She's never been knocked out by somebody like the finisher Lemos. It's not like Jandiroba hasn't fought anybody. She's a number 5 ranked strawweight.
Yeah, she's fought.
So if nobody can knock her out and she's only losing by decision, I think Lemos is going to show a hole here, and I think Jandiroba is going to win.
I think it's going to be a very entertaining fight. I think it's going to be a very competitive fight. But I got Lemos. I think she wins by decision here.
I think Jandiroba wins by decision. Final answer.